This story begins at the Woking railway station. Elderly employee Ed Jacobson, as usual, arrives early for work and willingly helps passengers with various tasks, for example, assisting a woman to get a stroller down the steps or showing a foreigner the correct route. One day, while Ed was selling tickets at the counter, a young woman named Linda approached him and asked for a ticket to Mon Heights. The man replied in confusion that he had worked there for 20 years but had never heard of such a station. However, the woman insisted that she traveled to this town every day on one of the 3 trains that depart at 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 5 p.m. Even more puzzled, Ed handed her the schedule of those trains so she could see for herself that none of them stopped at a station called Mon Heights. And then, suddenly, the woman vanished without a trace. After work, the man tells his colleague Charles about the incident and admits that he can't shake the feeling that he has heard that name before. On his way home, Ed notices a police car near his house and hurries inside. It turns out his son Sam had offended a classmate and she had filed a complaint against him. This time, the boy was forgiven, but warned that such behavior would no longer be tolerated. After the police left, a upset Sam tried to justify himself, saying the girl had laughed at him and his father didn't scold him. The next morning, Linda returned to the ticket counter, asking again for a ticket to Mon Heights. Ed kindly invited her into his office so that he and Charles could ask her more questions about this mysterious town. "How long does it take to get there?" Ed asked, and the woman replied, "Exactly 28 minutes. Linda continued, saying that the town has only 5,000 residents, and that she herself works as an accountant at the Bradshaw Insurance Agency. The woman begins to worry, thinking something is wrong with her since she is being asked so many questions. Charles shows her a map of the local train lines and points out that there is no mention of Mon Heights anywhere. After he says this, the woman disappears again, silently and without a trace. Ed rushes to the platform and jumps onto the train she mentioned, but does not find her among the passengers. A man in a light-colored coat asks him something, mistaking him for a conductor, and Ed, confused, steps away. At home, Sam has another outburst of uncontrollable aggression and attacks his mother. The parents take him to a psychiatrist, who, after speaking with the teenager, expresses concern that his condition may worsen. Meanwhile, during the session, Ed feels as though he sees Linda in the hallway. At home, he admits to his wife that their son frightens him, to which she responds rather harshly that she fears his fake smile more than their son. The next day, determined to solve the mystery of Mon Heights, Ed takes the morning train to Alton and sets a timer for 28 minutes, the exact travel time Linda had mentioned. As the train departs, he sits by the window and suddenly sees Linda outside, watching him as he leaves. The train continues. The timer is almost up, but outside the window there are still no signs of Mon Heights, only a dull, empty landscape. Suddenly, the man in the light coat opens the door and jumps from the moving train. At that very moment, Ed's timer goes off, and without hesitation, he follows suit. It turns out that quite a few people jump at this spot, all making their way across a field toward a thick mist, within which the outlines of a town are visible. There it is, Mon Heights. Astonished, Ed enters the nearest cafe, where a friendly waitress warmly greets him. She brings him tea and serves her signature apple pie. Still unable to believe what is happening, Ed steps out onto the main street, where he encounters a young couple. They have just gotten married and, in their joy, hug everyone passing by. The hero continues exploring the town. The residents are very welcoming and friendly, and the colorful houses look new and modern. Later, he sits on a bench to rest and watch the children playing when Linda approaches him. Ed asks her if he has gone mad. She replies that the town is real, but there is no sorrow there, and everyone in it is happy. At 7 in the evening, Ed, along with some other people, boards the return train and goes back home. But it seems that something has changed. In his pocket, he finds a pack of cigarettes, even though he hasn't smoked in years, and his wife has become completely different, more energetic and joyful. His son's room is empty, and from his wife's words, he realizes that they never had children. Finally, it dawns on Ed that by boarding the train, he entered an alternate reality. Eager to learn as much as possible, he searches for articles about Mon Heights online and comes across a journalist named Martine. Meeting her at her home, he discovers that he is far from the first person interested in the non-existent town. Several years ago, an architect dreamed of building a perfect city where people would be happy. But due to bureaucratic incompetence, the project was cancelled and the architect died, having lost his dream. Although the place remains empty, many people continue to believe that Macon Heights exists. Martina also wanted to reach it, but the door never opened for her. Then Ed sees a photograph of Linda, and the journalist explains that she was the daughter of that architect, but after the tragedy with her father, she disappeared. Ed begins to think that Macon Heights exists in a separate reality, accessible only to certain people. At work, Ed continues searching for information and receives yet another confirmation that he is in a different reality. Charles suddenly starts talking about his children, whom he never had. Ed once again takes the train to Macon Heights and has lunch at the cafe. When he steps back onto the street, he is nearly knocked over by the newlyweds, and everything happening in the town repeats, just as it did the first time, with only minor differences. Back home, Ed begins to miss Sam. Finding old videotapes of him in the attic, he suddenly realizes that despite the happiness in the alternate reality, he wants to return to his own, where his son exists. The man rushes onto the train to Macon Heights to find a way back. In the town, he starts asking people about Linda and notices that all of them are haunted by some kind of pain. Even the waitress tearfully confesses that she still suffers from the consequences of past physical abuse. He steps out onto the street and encounters the newlyweds for the third time. In frustration, Ed shoves the man aside and heads toward the insurance agency building, which is nothing more than a thin wall with a door. Inside, in the empty space, he sees Linda and asks her to send him back to his original reality. The woman replies that he will be happier here, but the man continues to insist. Linda explains that she was able to create the reality that her father had dreamed of, a place where people can forget their pain and be happy. Only such people are granted the opportunity to see Macon Heights. But Ed firmly declares that no matter how painful it is, he wants to live in his own reality. And Linda leaves. In the evening, he waits for the return train, and the man in the light coat expresses his admiration, explaining that he himself could not overcome the guilt for his own crimes, and is therefore forced to live in an alternate reality. Exhausted, Ed returns home and sees that everything has returned to its proper place. And in the kitchen, Sam is waiting for him. And here, even more stories await you. Subscribe, because it's always exciting with us. See you soon.